Hey everyone, and welcome. I'm Kaia, the brand ambassador at Text, and today we're going to be talking about humanizing your brand. We actually have a special guest with us today, Conor Simpson, the marketing manager at the Chat Shop. Welcome, Conor.
Thanks, Kaia. Thank you for having me today.
I'm glad you're here. So could you start by, telling us a bit about yourself and also a bit about the Chat Shop?
Yeah, so a bit about me. I spent quite a few years working for big corporate brands like O2 Telefonica and BlackBerry. That was down in London. I then spent a
Ooh,
few years in Madrid in Spain, working for a startup over there. So I've always kind of been in the tech telecoms ecosystem. And for me, it's kind of a great place to challenge new ways of working,
that's great.
learn about new products, and just it's quite an exciting space to be in. So I joined the chat shop around 3 years ago now. So it's been super quick, and yeah, I'm the marketing manager, and we help brands that are on just different stages of their chat journey. So they may come to us because they're a startup, they've recently launched their product onto the market, and they might be drowning in support queries to their email inbox, and they're saying, how can you guys help me? So we come in and kind of understand their customers, understand the kind of challenges they face, and see how we can use technology to help them. So it could be bots, it could be putting a strategy in place for them because they don't know how to execute chat successfully. And it's all about helping brands at all these different stages that they're in. So we work with startups, enterprises, and it could be like an enterprise brand with 500 agents, and
Okay,
they're,
wow.
they're looking to see, how can I optimize these agents? How can I get the best out of them? How can we improve like our CSAT scores? And we come in and do some sort of soft skill training, how to
hmm
show empathy, how to build rapport. And it's all about helping them build that connection with their audience online. And I think so many brands just they either do it really well and they can have those conversations with their clients, but some just kind of are lacking in that area. And sometimes it can feel quite robotic and more of a tick box exercise.
Yeah.
Um, we
So
also help brands that are just kind of looking to take full ownership of the channel. So we'll come in and they say that we need to drive revenue, we need to increase sales.
mhm.
So we'll come in and do the whole strategy of lead generation. We'll bring the team, the tech, the reporting, and the account management, and we'll own that whole piece for them.
That's really cool. Like, then you must, like, you work with various different brands at various different, like, small businesses, even enterprises, right, on a daily basis. And you kind of have to shift and adjust and find the perfect fit for them for their chat strategy as well. So that sounds really cool. All right, so I have a bunch of questions for you today, and I hope you do not mind. I mean, that's why you're here. I'm here to pick your brain with all of this. So, you know, let's start off easy.
Sure.
Um, can you share a brand with us, like, no matter, small or big, which, in your opinion, humanized the brand well? And, like, how did they do that? Like, of course, it can be a case study, can be an example, something you've read, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. I think for me, it's probably one that's relatively well known, and that would be Apple. I think they're a
Yeah.
great brand that's been able to nearly every touch point that they have, they really humanize their brand in terms of all their products are customer centric, like how things are designed, their features. When you go into the retail stores that they have, you don't necessarily feel like you're being pushed with the products. It's more uh, they're showcasing what you can do, what the possibilities are.
Mhm.
I know they even run sort of classes within the store, which I attended one, and it was how to kind of use their Apple Pen with their iPad to do a illustration, and I can't remember the name of the software now, but that whole piece was around education. They weren't necessarily like
Cool.
going for a hard sell to push their iPads. So I found that that's a kind of a great way to connect with your customers. And then across all their touch points in marketing, they use simple language, it's clear, it's easy to understand. And I don't know if you recall, but there was a campaign at the time, it felt like it was everywhere, on the buses, on the kind of underground, and it was the shot on iPhone campaign. And this was like
Yes.
showcasing like, and these pictures were amazing, like really high quality. It felt done by just ordinary people, like anyone could kind of submit their photos, but showcasing that here's the connection between this is what is possible and this is what you can do with our products. And I think that that's kind of a great way to connect. And it's all about the language they use. And I remember they even named the people who had taken the photographs, and I think that's a kind of a really nice touch to help show that human side.
Most definitely. And I actually remember I had like a part of this in my video. I was doing some research and I read that their employees actually like don't call Apple stores, but they call it like a town square, which like if your employees think of their office as a town square, then it's a completely different vibe than, it would normally be in a corporate. So,
100%.
it's about building that connection, right, in the end, like and do you think that there's, like, a best channel for it or, like, simply being everywhere your customers are is the most important?
Yeah, I think, but using the correct channel that your target audience will use. I think having all of them, it can be challenging to manage if you have so many different channels like email,
Yeah.
phone, live chat, social media. I think it's about tailoring your experience and your comms to the channel that your audience prefers. And I think that even now we're seeing an emergence of sort of I'm going to say Gen Z, even though I'm a millennial. So sort of that Gen Z, they kind of appreciate more this instant connection, whether that be via Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or live chat, for example. They prefer that than using sort of traditional methods like phone, for example. Um, a lot of the times they have their phone on silent. They don't want to be disturbed, and they prefer engaging with brands during their time when they're ready to talk on their terms, and just really being accessible with the right channel for them.
Yeah, exactly, I mean, I completely agree, so it's more like be there for your customers at any time and everywhere, but be
Correct.
there is the key word, right?
Did you ever find sort of a favorite brand that you feel has been great at kind of connecting that human element to them?
Um, I actually I see so many people currently traveling to Bali and staying, like for example, in Bali for like months and months. And a great example of a brand that really humanized its image well is I'd say Airbnb. Like through there was a campaign, like through their Belong Anywhere campaign, right? Like they
Okay.
showed real stories of hosts and guests, which really like highlighted personal experiences and the unique connections that were formed during stays as well. Like ever since they started, like no one's really used the term, I've rented a room or I've rented an apartment, right? Everybody just says I'm staying at an Airbnb.
Airbnb. Yep.
Exactly. And, like, by featuring, like, these narratives in their marketing, they really emphasize the idea of travel as a means of, like, connecting people and, to meet people from, like, the other side of the world, get to know different cultures, like, which is something, like, completely different from the original meaning of I rented out a room in Spain or in Kenya or anywhere in the world, right? Like, apart from that, I think they're also really active on their social media. I mean,
Mhm.
you see their ads all the time as well on Instagram. They share that user-generated content, and they also encourage, like, people to share their individual stories, like hosts and guests sharing their stories as well. They also, highlight diverse cultures, local communities, which is great, and also the individual stories of hosts. So this really adds a human touch to their brand and resonates with audiences worldwide. So I'd say that this approach helped Airbnb to build a community-driven platform that felt more like personal and relatable to its users. So I'd go with them. I mean, we went with big ones, Apple and Airbnb, but it makes sense.
I also think that that's a great example of, for example, my mom didn't really, not that she didn't understand the concept of Airbnb, but when those ads went out and they showcased that it was a host apartment, that kind of opened up conversations between us. And she said, just to try and understand it more, because uh, Airbnb was completely new to her. She never used it, but it's a great tool to kind of educate your audience and, like you say, show that human connection, the human element to it, which makes it more relatable. So I think it
Ex
was a great campaign, a really strong one.
exactly. Most definitely. And you truly feel like you belong anywhere, especially with the hosts, like providing that type of experience and actually caring for you. It's not just staying at a hotel anymore. It's like actually making friends wherever you go. And I think that
Mm.
is the true beauty of it, that the world also opened up to it when Airbnb became a thing, right?
And like you say, being with that host, sharing those local tips, like you only get those when you're living within that area. So I think again,
Exactly.
it's invaluable.
Like, especially nowadays, everyone wants to feel the local experience. It's not about staying in the best resorts possible. It's about actually being, feeling the place and feeling the people, understanding the culture. So I feel like that really brings to it as well.
Yeah.
All right, before we get all chatty, even though you are from the chat shop. So, you're obviously an expert in chat communication. But did you have any experience with a brand, but as a customer, where you were like surprised how they use chat to solve your issue?
Probably the best example I can think of, actually, my bank, quite recently, I had a few transactions that I didn't recognize when I was in
Ooh,
the app.
okay.
And at first, I was like, probably some late night online shopping that I didn't recognize, but I did want to kind of investigate. So typically, I would have probably went to the bank or maybe called them up. But while I was actually within the app, there was an option to have a live chat. So I
Hmm.
clicked through the menus. I was already logged in with my kind of password credentials. And unfortunately, when I went through, nobody was available. I remember it being quite late, maybe 8, 9 p.m. in the evening. And I just sent a message being like, hey, I don't recognize these transactions. And I gave some of the transaction IDs. And it was a bot that actually collected this information.
Okay.
So I just presumed that, maybe the next working day I would hear. Um, so I started watching TV, and then all of a sudden my phone went off, and it was a message from the bank, literally about 20 or 30 minutes after. And it was a live person. I was able to kind of talk through the transactions. He shared where they came from. And just that whole experience was completely different to what I'd previously done. And it was also a nicer experience because, I don't know, typically when you go to the bank, you're in a long queue, there's tons of people. Or when you're on the phone, you're on hold for a long period of
Yeah.
time, and the hold music is never amazing. But being able to just kind of go about my everyday
Hmm.
life, like just enjoy my time in the evening and relax, and then still be able to have my query resolved was just great. I think it's the kind of the trend that companies are moving to, and I think it's better for the brand as well. They're more efficient being able to use a bot, for example, at first if nobody's around to kind of understand the issue, and then someone pick it up when they're available.
Most definitely, it's convenience and comfort, you know? And like you mentioned earlier, Gen Z expects that. It's not that they would like it, it's that they are currently expecting it. For us, I mean, for a millennial like yourself, maybe it's more like, oh, that's interesting, that's cool, that's very nice.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, like I haven't actually ever heard a scenario. I mean, I actually haven't used my bank doesn't use live chat yet, which I really do hope they do because like you said, resolves queries so fast. Um, now live chat. So how, like, in your expert opinion, can one use live chat to its full potential, right? We're getting to how it brings the convenience, how it brings the comfort, but how about using it to its full potential? And let's say, like, based on online retailers, let's move away from
sure.
banks.
And I guess like nearly everyone, I imagine everyone at this stage now, because everyone's using more online shopping, they will have experienced using chat at some stage, whether that be sort of like, where's my order? I need to return an item, have a question about a product in stock. And I think that these all typically fall under the kind of the support side of live chat.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there's so much more to it, and different strategies that brands can employ to really understand sort of market demand and what customers like, what they resonate, and just to try and get so say for example you're a D2C brand that sells paint, like maybe your people are coming onto your website, and instead of them coming on to ask around about how long is delivery, what courier do you use, for example, they can take a proactive approach and understand, what brought you to the site, what's your next
Yeah.
project, what room are you decorating, uh, what's your favorite color. Just trying to build that conversation into it, and by being more proactive with the customers, they'll get their attention as opposed to them coming onto the site, maybe checking out some colors and then going on to a competitor or exiting or
Mhm.
finishing up with that task. So really engaging them at the right time, using the right message, not just a simple hello, but really, hey, I see you're checking out red paint or something like this. What is your next project? Just something that's a bit more personal.
Yeah.
We're talking with a human, and so that's one element. Be more proactive. Another tactic that kind of ecom players can use is around basket abandonment. So many of them, well, even the big players, like Amazon, I'm trying to think of other big ecom brands, but across the board, they all face the same challenge when it comes to people
Yeah.
putting stuff into their cart and then leaving. And typically, one tactic that these brands employ is, say, for example, you exit your basket. Within 24 hours, you typically receive a discount code that offers maybe 10% off or free delivery or something like this. Now, these can work, but that's just kind of assuming that price was a sticking point or delivery was a sticking point. And by doing this tactic, ecom players are actually just eroding their margin. Now, if they used live chat, for example, at the checkout stage, so at any time they feel that, well, any time that they do analysis where someone's about to exit the page or they've been idle for so long, by being proactive and asking, if the customer needs any help at that stage, they can overcome any objections that they might have. So it could be around shipping times, it could be around which courier they're using, it could be that they just need to find out a bit more information about the product. And being able to overcome those objections in real time and talk to your customers, you're going to learn so much more about them, and you're going to potentially save that sale instead of using that kind of blanket discount code technique.
Um, we actually talked about support teams earlier. And you
Yeah.
mentioned a lot about that because you also do that at the chat shop with the chat strategy. So, what I'd like to ask you is, how do you build expertise and support teams? Like, what methodologies or techniques do you find most effective, like when you're training the customer service reps?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be pretty daunting for those customer service reps that are new, sort of
Oh my
in that
goodness.
role, right? But I think there's kind of a few techniques and methodologies that they can explore. So it's really about stripping it back to the basics. So you want to kind
Hmm.
of, like spelling and grammar, like they're quite simple things, but it's a great starting point because you want to reflect your brand in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And you want your customers to trust what's been said. So I think that nailing those fundamentals is key. Another way is building rapport. Now, again, it goes back to you don't want it to feel robotic. That it's kind of a tick box exercise, and you want your agents to be excited, to be they're talking to a real person with a specific scenario, and they ever want to help them or kind of support
Guide
them on
them.
their journey. Exactly, take them
Yeah.
on to a different place. So I think there's a few ways they can do that. One is like by using the customer's name. Uh, it seems small, but being able to say, hi Kaya, let me take a look at that for you. Really take ownership of their situation. They could be coming on with maybe a challenging problem that they feel frustration, and they need that empathy. So really changing your tone and um, how you
Personalize it.
sympathize.
Yeah.
Exactly. Uh, and don't be afraid to ask the customer questions. I think one of the key things for communication is being really clear about what their expectations are, what guidance you're giving them, so that there's no kind of ambiguity. Um, and start with just one chat at a time. Don't put a new person on that's having to handle multiple chats when they're just kind of starting out. Really scale that activity and let them learn over time. They can also do kind of test environments. So,
Hmm.
um, set up a test environment with live chat where you're being able to communicate. I remember even in my first job, when I was studying at university, I had a part-time retail job. And one of the big things before we even went out onto a shop floor was doing role play. So we would pretend to be customers with issues, and we'd pretend to be the shop assistant helping them, and we'd just try different scenarios. And I mean, it was quite fun at the time, but I remember also being super nervous. It was my first role, um, but a great experience. But again, it's key to kind of help that learning and development of that agent.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of things, like there's a speed typing test. I know you guys at live chat have
Yes.
that on your site, which I did once, and it kind of set my expectation that there's room for improvement, but also I don't know if I could be a chat agent. Their job's quite, I
We'll
guess,
keep your
people who are
results on the
seasoned.
hush hush. We'll keep your results on
Exactly,
the hush hush then.
exactly. But quite a challenging role because you're handling multiple chats. You're typing fast. You need to be consistent, good
Yeah.
spelling, good grammar, and clear.
Right. Let's go back a bit to the customers and the clients that you have at the chat shop. So, could you give an example of how the approach, right, differs for different clients or consumers? On one hand, we have serious institutions, let's say, right? And
Yeah.
on the other hand, we have a shop that sells slime. How do you approach your projects through live chat that showcases the humanization?
Yeah, and each company is going to be, like you said, companies are completely different. Um, they have different target markets. They have different customers that they want to engage with. So whenever we bring a new client on board, we spend a great deal of time understanding who they want to connect with, who they don't want to engage with, and just being able to map out these are your target customers. You know, what language or phrasing are they going to, what's going to resonate with them? I think I used the example of a D2C brand selling paint. It's not going to be the same as, say, a bank, for example, who
Mhm.
engages, it's more of a corporate, whereas the D2C brand can put a bit of their own stamp onto it, make it more personal. So really understanding the brand's tone of voice, who they want to target, and from that, we train our agents so we understand these are who we're looking to target. This is the kind of knowledge and product information of the brand, and these are our goals. So their goals are going to be different as well, depending on the type of customer they are. So maybe they're focused on lead generation. They could be focused on driving e-commerce revenue, or it could be something around support. Trying to make them more efficient. And during that onboarding process, it's a 2-week process. So we want to
Okay,
be
yeah.
able to, yeah, to be able to represent that brand like it was our own. And we're constantly testing before we go live, similar to what we were saying around doing test scenarios. Because going live is a big thing. It's a new channel. You want it to be
Most
impactful as
definitely.
possible, and really aligned to your brand as well.
Mhm. Most definitely. Um, so talking about brand going live and the brand's tone, like it kind of makes me think of, if you have a rookie, a customer service rep rookie on the team, and like they haven't really had the chance to, fully grasp that brand tone, like how can you make sure that they're actually comfortable and at the same time your, the brand tone is consistent? Like how would that work?
Yeah, I guess it could be a problem for brands, and there's a couple of ways that using live chat that you can kind of overcome that. One way I would say is canned responses. Now, these are like pre-text messages that have already been created, so it allows you to kind of adapt your brand's tone of voice. It also allows the correct information to be relayed to the customer. And it's a really smart way to just streamline those communications. So what I would always suggest is have some canned responses created. What are the typical things that your customers might ask? It could also be a great way to kind of guide the customer, understand where they are. So one example could be, what brought you to the site today? And that allows the agent to see whether they're a new customer or an existing customer. And by streamlining that and having a few canned responses available, it not only saves them time, but it allows for that cohesive brand, that brand tone, that identity. And then just the next stage I would probably suggest for the agent is just to adapt these. So drop in the customer's name, ask about, you know, they can see their location, for example, maybe talk about where they are, how's the weather in the UK, or something like this. Try and
Yeah.
make it,
About canned responses, so in live chat, we have that function, right? So you can basically add a variable so that each time when you do want to send that certain canned response to a customer, instead of having to adjust it, right, and perhaps accidentally type their name wrong. I hope that never happens, but just saying. You can literally just add hi variable and then comma, and the rest of your text or um, yeah, something like that. So it's super easy. Canned responses are definitely great. So about one of your customers, I actually read your case study on Eon. So one of the
sure.
leading energy service providers in the UK, right? Their main challenge was the fact that they didn't really know how to use chat effectively, as in they didn't know how to like bring that human touch to chat. So my question is, what did you like advise them and how did you build their chat strategy?
Yeah. So Eon was a big one because it's a huge enterprise, like a really well known brand, and had a team of agents. So they were already using LiveChat, and what they noticed was they did some research, and they found that their customers actually preferred to use like traditional methods like the phone, email,
Mhm.
and there was kind of an element of, did they not trust chat? They were unsure about waiting in a queue. It just didn't really have a good reputation. What Eon wanted to do was really change that perception of what live chat could be. It's a great way from a cost perspective compared to these kind of traditional channels, and being available 24/7, and being having the kind of the team available. What they wanted to do was just put it into a good place. It didn't have any strategy. The team hadn't really had any training. So we came on board, and our role was just to really build that strategy for them, build that
Mhm.
framework, do some training, and really hold their hand through that whole process. So we came on first. We did a big deep dive as to how things were currently being done. Uh, we were reading chat transcripts. We were seeing from their analytics on Google Analytics how much traffic was coming to the site. How many chats could the agent handle? Did we have the right resources in place? So I think once we'd done the kind of data collection, reviewing the transcripts, we were then able to say, right, this is the training that we need, the kind of the soft skills. So again, going back to what we've discussed today around
Mhm.
showing empathy, canned responses, uh, handling multiple chats at one time,
Yeah.
handling difficult customers as well. Because one of the things with chat is, if a chat agent is stressed and they're handling multiple chats and customers are angry, I imagine it's quite a high pressured
Well, yeah, I'd say so as
situation,
well.
and that's when mistakes can be made, right? So you
Yeah.
can grammar, you can give the wrong information. So I think what our goal was just to really empower these agents so that they felt confident, they
Right.
could have multiple chats, they could deal with difficult customers, and this then has a knock-on effect across when you're doing customer service as to what was the impact. How did
Mhm.
the agent deal with your question, with your query? Was it resolved quickly? And so we'd done that training. We also built out the framework, and the whole strategy was underpinned around the people, the tech, reporting, and this all fed up to kind of optimization. So by
Okay.
using these pillars that we'd set, we were then able to say, how can we improve on the reporting? How can we improve the agent training? And just giving them sort of a continuous improvement plan uh, can kind of set them up for success. Because I feel that so many brands start doing chat, they have a few people, and then they kind of leave it for a while. They don't look at it. They just kind of
They
assume
think
that
it's,
everything's
like,
good,
going on by itself, right? Yeah.
right? And no one's kind of monitoring and saying, how can we actually improve what we're doing here? How can
Mhm.
we get our agents to be more efficient? And I think that's a great area, and it's definitely something that we help brands do. Um, and it's not only impactful to drive revenue, it makes them more efficient. And they, from the back of that project, they got a really good sort of NPS scores. They'd went up by
Okay.
10%.
Wow.
People had said it's more responsive. They felt that the agents were more, not caring, but they felt like more part
M
of.
More of a connection.
Exactly, exactly.
That's great to hear. I mean, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you, Connor, so much for today. Thank you so much for, letting me pick your brain as well. It was great to have you here, and I really hope we do this again soon on maybe a different interesting topic. And thank you for joining us today. Now, if you do have any questions for Connor, can I leave your LinkedIn handle in the description, Connor?
yeah, for sure. And listen, Kaya, thank you for today's chat. Like, I really enjoyed it. I mean, we talked about so many different brands. I hope that it
Yeah.
wasn't any sort of marketing for Airbnb and Apple, but it was definitely a great a great experience.
Perfect. So I'll leave Conor's LinkedIn handle in the description. And if you do have any questions to the chat shop, we'll leave their link in the description as well. If you have any questions about live chat, you know where to go, livechat.com, and feel free to start a chat with us. Thank you so much, Conor, once again for joining us today.
Thank you, Kaia.
Thank you for watching, and see you soon.